Hello, it's January 27th, 2017. I'm Tony Smario, coming to you from my father, BroSal.org YouTube channel. And we're going to do an end times trending on the Trump presidency, what I would call, if I was writing this as a screenplay, the way I imagine we are actually being fed this narrative of modern history. And when I say modern, I mean the last 100 years, at least since Edward Bernays and the invention of propaganda that got us into this stream of control that those in control exercise over us. And if you want a modern theatrical version, you can watch Wag the Dog, which is from the late 80s or 90s, I believe, with Dustin Hoffman, Robert De Niro, big time movie. And it's all about the notion that they can control, meaning the media, through the media, they can control the way the public opinion at large. And so, I think that's a real study in where we're at today, evidenced by how many people, even, otherwise aware people, caught up in the, either being on Trump's side as possibly for real or being completely anti-Trump as bringing on the end of the world and or whatever, being just the worst thing that could happen. And what I find so odd about that argument is those people seem to imagine that Hillary Clinton would have presented a better choice. And so that's to ignore this wag the dog type of world that I say is evident. And that anyone who does the research, as I've been doing for a long time in my own life, I don't see how you can help but come up with the conclusion that we live in a wag the dog sort of world where the media, like the government, like the military, is all paid for through this big business venture they call Wall Street, which is really just a pyramid scheme. It's all just a mafia scheme. They take the power, they keep the power, they run the businesses, drugs and guns and money, banks, that keeps the power, quite centralized. And they tell us a story through the media and through Hollywood, their magic. They work their magic of illusion through Hollywood and make us believe we're living in this free democracy and blah, blah, blah. And so what I find so interesting is just on the surface to believe that Donald Trump was somehow elected by the people, that he rose up and just naturally this maverick with his own money. And that was just happened underneath everybody's nose. There was nothing they could do about it. I mean, let's face it, the media's against him, right? Got to be, all Wall Street's got to be against him if they chose Hillary and put their money into Hillary, if the elites, if the Bilderbergers, if the Rothschilds, if the Rockefellers all chose Hillary, they own the media. They hate Donald Trump. He becomes president because the people elected him. Is that what that's the world that you want to believe in? Okay. I don't see how that's possible. What I say is you're listening to the screenplay, which is really well written. Just like when Obama came around 8 years ago, boy, oh boy, did he sound good, didn't he? And look who he was up against. Just a maniac of a man in comparison, just a right-wing, short-sighted. I mean, how much of the America's true population is represented by McCain, this old man, neocon, war hawk, right? Wall Street, just a insider political figure, right? Who's he really represent? So along comes Obama. Oh boy, weren't we excited? Weren't his speeches wonderful? Boy, if you'd listened to his inauguration speech, you could sit and waste a whole day writing to the anti-Obama crowd about, why don't you give the guy a chance? Listen to that inauguration speech. What's wrong with saying we're here to give the power back to the people? I mean, come on, guys. That's what they all say. So to waste a day sitting writing a support of that, to me, is really, well, it demonstrates for me the depth of the brainwashing. If you watch your television, you're brainwashed. And no matter what you think you know in rational argument, it's proven, that's why propaganda works, you can't be argued out of your emotional response. So you respond emotionally, even though you know better. And so I want to point out a few things about this Trump presidency, because if I was writing this screenplay, I'd call this fool's gold. This episode, this transition, this Trump transition, I think should be called fool's gold. And one of the ways you can tell that we're all being fooled is that all of the media, everyone in the world seems to speak as if Trump equals America. Trump's doing this and Trump's doing that. And as soon as he gets in power, what's all the media announcing to you? What he's doing. Trump's going to do this, Trump's going to do that, Trump just repealed this, and Trump just repealed that. There's not even, I haven't heard yet anyway, the argument about the fact that, well, the Congress could block every single thing that Trump's doing. Oh, but they're all Republicans. So what? So what? They're not maniacs, are they, just because they're Republicans? They don't go against their constituency, do they, just because they're Republicans? And I'm sorry, but as I've been trying to explain to the Trump fans for a year now or more, only when you turn off Fox News do you realize that Trump does not have the support of the people. He has a wag the dog support of a screenplay, pretending he has the support of this giant right-wing Christian crowd. Most of them, if they knew any better, they'd be scared to death right now at what Trump's bringing their way in the name of God. This God-fearing president that's never asked for forgiveness. I've still never heard him say the word Jesus. Doesn't sound like a guy who thinks we're in the end times and Jesus is going to return. And, I don't know. That's what a Christian would be talking. Isn't that what Christians are out there talking about right now? So our president, the great Christian doing everything for God, which God? Remember, there's lots of gods. Don't you know that? That's the way our scriptures say it, right? Even in the Old Testament. Let those people go with their own gods. You follow me, right? People have mistaken fallen angels, it says, as gods and worshiped them as gods. So as far as other people are concerned, there are gods beyond the one God that comes through the Judeo faith, the Abraham and Mosaic covenant. That God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that prophesied a Messiah would come, that Christians believe is Jesus of Nazareth, that God, right? Who believes in that God? That's supposed to be demonstrated by certain Christian actions. You're supposed to see in the life of a person who believes in that God the way that they live. And if you're going to tell me that's the way Donald Trump lives or any of his cabinet, because they say Jesus, Jesus, and have nice little tight haircuts and go to these churches, well, boy, oh boy, we're on different pages is all. And so I'm trying to present a different perspective of reality in which it's more like they showed you in Wag the Dog, except, of course, in that movie, they make it out like these guys are trying to, these are just the dark forces of power the operatives that have to fool the journalists because, of course, they can't get caught by the journalists. It doesn't present that, of course, they're feeding the journalism. It does, but it acts as if they could get caught. And that's not possible, of course, in our world, the way we understand it, because these pedophiles get caught all the time, but you don't see any journalism about it, except when they want you to, like the Catholic priests. They brought all that out, made a big stink about it, made a movie about it, I guess to hold the Catholics in line, because perhaps their message of, freedom from this elitism is too, needs to be held in check. I'm not sure. But it looks to me like nobody's helping the Catholics in America. They've been crucifying them the last decade. So to think the Vatican's in charge is outrageous. It seems more like somebody who perhaps got their strategy from Albert Pike is in charge. And they're working on dividing and conquering the world through dividing the Zionist movement against its opposition, and in doing so, dragging in this religious, anti-religious division that they built up through communism and the revolution in China, so that they could create this whole antithesis to the religious mind, which of course dominated the world. Everybody had a god. Very few people had no God at all. So they developed this no God at all into this giant chunk of what could then be militarized soldiers. And geez, that's what they've done. They've militarized that zone of people with no God and militarized over here this zone of people with God. But they won't let certain people even have one weapon. Funny enough. And we go nuts if North Korea threatens even to use the one weapon they might have. But Russia and China, just get developed by the same Rothschild banking money. And nobody goes in and takes them out. We take out Salvador Allende down there in Chile to put a dictator in, right? We take out what was his name? Mossadegh in Iran to put the Shah in. We take out people all over the world. We took out Libya recently. We took out Saddam Hussein. But we've never taken out any of these horrible leaders of Russia or China that were usurping the good spiritual nature of their people. Russia is where Orthodox Christianity still resides, even after nearly a century of destruction. Funded destruction by the so-called communists and atheists. And China still has this deep Buddhist heritage in spite of, a couple of generations of materialism being shoved down their throat and their whole society being turned into a completely material, based on materialism. Their production as factory workers, dark satanic mills, is what they turned China into. And if you don't see that, if you think the Chinese people chose this, go back and see who funded the revolution. See whose money was behind the building of those weapons. Who built those weapons? These poor people that didn't have anything, that got conquered by the English? So, I don't buy it. It's too obvious when you do the research that we live in a different kind of world. So here's the evidence to me that all you Trumpers that just are so happy to spend all day, instead of writing a story about how deceitful this world is, how what your Bible tells you is there's a great deception coming. And Trump certainly is part of that great deception if we're in the end times. Otherwise, you're deceiving yourself, I believe. So I sure like to see people put their time into spreading truth rather than lies, rather than putting all their energy into being just a mouthpiece for the lies and the propaganda machine. So here you go. You got the first big evidence for you is that the whole world has not only got you being a mouthpiece, acting as if Trump can do anything, as if we've needed Trump to tell us that we could just destroy our wetlands, we could just ignore the Native American reservations and start running pipelines across the country. That'd put some people to work. Yeah, great jobs. I mean, they're fairly high paying, but they're short term. It only lasts as long as you're putting the pipeline in. They're dirty. They're dangerous. It's not pretty work. So, and it makes the people who are paying you this great temporary job, filthy, richer. None of that's talked about. Just, Trump's going to create jobs by building pipelines. I've been saying for 10 years, how come we don't talk about the fact that from Japan to China to Europe, they all got these great trains that run across the country. They all got great, even in Mexico, we get great public transportation so the workers can get around on nice, clean buses with nice, clean bus stations with food all around the bus station for the workers to eat, and the buses run on time, and there's lots of them, and everybody rides the bus, and it really works, right? Not in America, not in the cities, in most cities in America. So, our schools and such badly need to be reconditioned and such, all these sort of projects that really matter, that would put people to work in every state by running a, high-tech rail work to every city, every capital kind of thing, from every capital to every capital around the country. That's a nice 10 or 20-year project that keeps people working long enough to buy a car and a house. You get a job working that project, you're on for 10 years, So I don't know. They don't talk about the things that are quite simply been pointed out for years and years and years by the economists as the real answers. No, we're going to build more nukes under, we got to build up our defense, of course. We got to go after ISIS. We got to build pipelines to stimulate the economy. We got to start trade wars around the world that, I don't know, I guess the geniuses that we, the people, have been paying exorbitant amounts of money for decades have just been screwing us up because it only took Donald Trump to come in with this ultra right-wing group to come in and fix everything. Isn't that great? Don't you feel so comforted that for 10, 20 years now, we've had the biggest, supposedly smartest people, the guy the president of Harvard, Larry Summers, was our financial, advisor. We've had the biggest people already. Now we got an Exxon chief in charge of the Secretary of State, whatever. So I don't see why everybody's so thrilled about what these guys are saying, how you can't see it as a left wing going out, ultra right wing coming in. Why do you think that's good? Why do you think an ultra right wing transition suddenly? So let me tell you about what this ultra right wing transition promises. Here's just a short list from what I've gathered this week. Kind of an interesting thing. They've just moved the end of the world clock up. They want us to know that. They wouldn't tell us if that wasn't something they wanted to scare us about. But because of Donald Trump's presidency and the rhetoric that he's talking about, the buildup of weapons all over the world, the increased possibility that nuclear weapons will be fired in our lifetime, or in, the increased likelihood that nuclear weapons will be fired. These are the scientists that make up this clock. This isn't like a bunch of druggies sitting in college, with a gag. It probably is, but they present it to us as scientists working their own scientific method and algorithm to come up with the likelihood of an end of the world catastrophe, apocalypse that we bring on ourselves. And they've just moved that clock up thanks to Donald Trump. So, so there's one thing. China. We're going to start a trade war, of course, with China. That's what Trump's here for, I've been saying. He's going to start all sorts of trade wars that are supposed to bring us jobs and prosperity. And I say, yes, of course, they're going to bring us a little prosperity in the short term because they're meant to distract us from the fact that they're causing war. Just like it brought prosperity when we stole the territory known as Mexico from, California from Mexico so we could go expand out there and get the gold. We offered to buy it. They said no, so we started a war with them. And Henry Thoreau went to jail over it because he refused to support that war and wrote a great paper called Civil Disobedience that you should look up on the internet and read before you go becoming a mouthpiece for Donald Trump. So we're going to start a trade war with China through Trump, and that's not going to be good because that's just stimulating this fire that is World War III coming to us, right? So Donald Trump is not making America great again. He's making America ready for war again. So that's why the rhetoric about the South China Sea, we're going to stop that. And the South China Sea dispute's been going on for like 50 years, just so you know. And they have all sorts of agreements and treaties in place, and China's not doing nothing but what probably they're being paid to do or told to do. And all of this may, in fact, be in response to the fact they're being told you're going to have to go to war, so you better go build some bases down there. I don't know, but it's obviously not what they're telling us through the mainstream media, which is pure propaganda. So nobody's reacting to, oh no, China's building. They would have talked about that behind closed doors. They would have already sent emissaries like they probably did to Saddam or Libya or different people, say, that's a death sentence. You do that and we'll kill you. JFK, right? Do they just wait for you to do it and kill you? Either way, are they worried? Did it change the Fed? Did the Kennedy brothers get anything done? Right? They got dead, is what they got. Libya tried to change their currency, get on an African central bank, get away from these bankers. He got dead. Saddam Hussein tried to sell his oils in euro. He did. He changed and said, that's it. We're selling our oil in euros. He got dead. Oh, but North Korea, China, we can't send someone over there to get somebody dead so that they change their tune like we've done for 50 years, 60 years. No, we just react. ISIS, we react. We don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, we're backing up. So anyway, I say it's all rhetoric and it's all preparing for World War III. Go Trump, go Trump. He's our man. He's going to make America great again. Border wall. Yeah, that sounds great. That's what great countries do. They build border walls because that's always been so successful. From the Great Wall of China to the modern refugee fence in Hungary. That shows your strength, doesn't it? When you build a wall with your neighbor who you've been using like a slave and influencing, sending guns, creating violence, being a bad, bad neighbor. And now we're going to build a wall because we're so strong and we're so great. Jobs, as I've said, equals pipelines through Native American territories right now. That's their plans. So you look for more contention, look for more pain and suffering for the people that have nothing, and more billions for the billionaires who give you Donald Trump for president in their cartoon narrative. ISIS and Islam, this is where you're going to see things, point us more toward World War III. ISIS, of course, means more weapons to the Middle East and military buildup. We have to support now. I think the narrative is going to be Donald Trump's going to support the moderates and make them fight the fight. And all the Trump supporters are going to say, see what a great president he is. He's not sending American troops. He's making the Arabs fight the bad Arabs. Not pointing out, of course, that what Trump knows very well, unless he's an idiot, which he couldn't be and be in that position, is that we support the Arab terrorism so that we have a reason to send the money and guns to Jordan and Saudi Arabia to fight him, which, of course, all bodes for just a giant war with Iran and Russia over this in the end. Got nothing to do with getting rid of ISIS when you realize we pay for ISIS. ISIS is us. So until you realize that, you'll be lost in this fight against terrorism. It's like the fight against communism. How'd that end? Right? It was funded by the same people all along. So it ended right on cue. Just like the war on ISIS will, but I say what it'll amount to first is our great president, Donald Trump, the honest maverick, sending weapons and military aid to our good friends, the good Caliph and the good Arabs over there in the Middle East so that they can fight that war against the terrorists instead of American soldiers. Yay, Trump. And then, of course, Islam. I feel sorry for my brothers and sisters that are Islamic, because there are brothers and sisters, as if anybody in the world is, right? And who'd Jesus say? Who's my neighbor? According to Jesus, when the Pharisees asked him, well, who's my neighbor then? When he said, love your neighbor as yourself, that's the only real law. And they said, well, who's my neighbor? And he told them the story. Man broken down on the side of the road, beat up. Somebody robbed him and left him for dead. And his own people keep passing him and going, oh, help that guy. Look at him. He's all poor and in the street. And, look what I'm going to have to do. Bandage him up. Carry him. Put him on my mule or my horse, my camel, and walk him to the next town and find him a doctor. I don't have time for that. I'm a busy man or woman. I'm busy. I ain't got time. But one of the people that he's not even supposed to eat with under his Jewish law, he's not even supposed to be seen with one of these people. This is his enemy, an Assyrian. Sees just a hurt man on the street and bandages him up and carries him to the doctor. And Jesus says, you tell me who his neighbor is. So, I mean, don't tell me you're a Christian and you're hating on Islam and you're supporting Donald Trump now to start closing these people out of our country and over this friggin' wag the dog narrative that's a lie. You're supporting a lie. You're backing a liar, just like the Obama people who backed Obama. They backed a fraud. And you who are Trump supporters, I'm sorry, you're backing a fraud. And you look silly doing it to someone like me. And it's going to hurt so many people. This man is here to hurt a lot of people, and they can blame it on this misogynist a-hole, this low-life piece of scum called Donald Trump. Is he any more, irredeemable than me? In God's eyes, no. But on the playing field of humanity, has he exhibited himself as any sort of giver? A Christian? Sorry, guys, no. He's a player. He's an insider. He's a scumbag. He's an elitist. He's demonstrating by his lies and his participation in all this that he's the person being used as the mouthpiece to come in and do all this destruction, right? Because that's what's coming if you believe your Bible, or if you believe your eyes, if you believe reality, if you can believe your rational mind over your Edward Bernays propagandized emotional reaction to the brainwashing that you receive by leaving your television on. So yeah, Islam, I feel sorry for what Trump means to Islam. It's going to be a horrible, horrible future coming here now as they divide the people and create the hate and stimulate us toward this war with Islam. And then there's the law and order side of him. Of course, he's got to support our great men in blue. No talk about the corruption and the reason for the fight. No, nobody talks about the real issue, only to divide it to its polar extreme. So there's a reason that they're building more prisons right now, you guys. They've suspended visas to 7 Middle Eastern nations. That's at least, I don't know if they've done it or that's the proposal. I'm not straight on that fact yet, but that's supposedly what's coming right now. It's just, if you're from any of these countries, not of course Saudi Arabia, our friend where all the terrorists were supposed to be from on 9/11, and not if you're from Jordan, our friend, because you're a moderate, but all these countries that, we want to upset right now, primarily Shiite Muslim countries like Iran that don't have one single bomb. And are we trying to make peace with these people? No, we're trying to stimulate war. That's what I'm telling you is going on while we're talking peace and safety. Sudden destruction comes. Do you think that sudden destruction comes because Donald Trump's out making good deals for everybody? Because he's after good for anyone? Are you kidding me? Do you believe your Bible or do you believe Fox News, basically? Because you can't be a Trump supporter unless you're listening to Fox News. Sorry, turn that crap off. Okay, so law and order, building more prisons. We're going to be sending lots of people to jail under Donald Trump, not freeing people and bringing them into society and making us strong as a people from the bottom up. No, we're going to be very strong from the top down, is what I suspect. The elites will be so well ingrained that you won't get an argument from a worker who gets mistreated. You won't get an argument from a union that gets pushed to create more bottom line for the corporation so Donald Trump can be seen to be creating more money and more jobs. No. You get rid of all that resistance. I mean, that's how you do it, and that's what he's going to do. That's why he's got billionaires in there to help him do it. Not to help the average man get a better bus system, but to help whoever builds the bus make more billions, to whoever builds the roads, whoever gets contracts to build the weapons, to make sure they make the billions that they've lined up to make in this time of transition to war. That's what I say is going on. So law and order is to keep any decent people quiet, to keep any real law and order out. If you understand the mechanism, they use the words to mean the opposite. Law and order means let's build more prisons to put more of the people we don't want interrupting our takeover. All right. So, and then Iran, of course, I keep saying it, we're just there to provoke war, not friendship, not love, not respect. I mean, it's the oldest culture that, this is what's left of the oldest culture we know of that has the oldest, mathematics, metaphysics, all the stuff that comes down to the Greek culture that becomes the Western culture that we are. That's the origin of it over there. And I believe that's why we're making them our enemy, because, of course, that origin is a theistic one and points back to God. And that's not the God that we're going to worship in the future, especially the people. It seems like we're going to worship no God. We worship the God of money and munitions. And if there's people up above, the elitists that worship a Luciferian or otherworldly God, we may never know. But it certainly won't be the God of love and justice and peace. You can bet your sweet bones on that. And Donald Trump, I say, this fool's gold presidency is here to ensure, is here to make that step, just like 9/11 was there to make that turn toward this war in the Middle East and this destabilization of the Middle East. Now Donald Trump is here to another great transition like that, that's going to bring us more upheaval, more division, more war. And so the stance with Iran, of course, is going to be a bitter one. But then, of course, Jerusalem, Israel, the people the UN say are, have more resolutions against them than anyone in the world. The UN, of course, being how many nations, right? Supposedly all the friendly nations of the world, all the participatory nations of the world. And they say Israel's breaking the law. They say Israel's got to give back the land. But the United States says, no, they don't. So, and so Trump, there's no argument about the contention of that issue, simply the fact that now Trump's, already talking about freezing the money Obama pledged. And I can just hear the Trump lovers, the Trumpers. Obama had no right to do that. Yeah, of course not. That's the whole play. That's the narrative. Read the script. Have Obama make a big contentious thing so that Trump can come in and make a really ultra contentious right-wing move. Stop the money. Make a big deal now. Make it part of the issue that we're going to stop the money to the UN to go to the Palestinians. Because what? They have to stop the violence? Are you kidding me? The UN has just most recently said two things. Jerusalem's not the capital of the Jews. Doesn't belong to them. Hadn't belonged to them since God kicked them out of there. And Jerusalem doesn't belong to the Jews, and the expansion of their settlements is illegal and needs to stop immediately. That's what the whole world says through the UN. So what does Donald Trump say? Yeah, I'm going to be the president that moves the embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing this Jerusalem. There's all this media. Oh, yes, we recognize the eternal capital of Jerusalem. Right? If you don't see you're being played, go watch the movie Wag the Dog, please. And now freezing this money and threatening or saying, Trump saying he's going to stop the money flow to the Palestinians unless they stop the violence. Because, of course, these people that have been kicked down for a generation now, going on two, and have nothing. You know, they throw rocks still because they have so much nothing compared to Israel, which is like the most heavily fortified single place on earth. So to pretend that the violence needs to stop from the Palestinians instead of the Israelis is just to be so brainwashed that really you're going to be so ashamed, I believe, when the Lord finally does arrive and the veil is lifted on this lie, this subtle lie that the devil has been perpetrating in the world. You're going to be so ashamed that you fell for the lie. Russia, of course, now they're our friend, which means the build up. We're going to give them territory or allow them to expand. And while the media is pointing out they're expanding, they're moving this and they're doing that, you know, Trump's going to play, hey, they're our ally, man. Don't worry. We got to deal with them. We got to deal with them. That will probably backfire in the end, is the way it's going to be. But for now, it allows Russia to build up, right? We make an enemy of China so that when the time comes, they side with Russia. Russia, meanwhile, has the free hand now to build military equipment, send it all over the world, because, of course, we're going to make friends with Russia to do that. So, and of course, Trump, the great president, took Trump to come in to decide that Russia was no longer our enemy. All of our intelligence for a generation now, but Donald Trump, of course, knows better. Thank goodness he's here, guys. Whoa. Good thing the American people were able to elect him, huh? And then, of course, you got the far right cabinet, as I've said, which only, you know, if there's anything that screams, it's division of the people of America, which it's already doing, of course, because you're either sitting all day to compose a letter to defend Donald Trump's inauguration speech against the anti-Trumpers, or you're spending all day to ride the wave of angst, of anti-Trump emotion. And so that's where they've got Americans right now. And I think, that, of course, that's what the right-wing cabinet's for. Nobody in the anti-Trump world's got a friend in the government now. They're all on this right wing, which is being presented to the pro-Trumpers as this great, all these great things. Because, of course, Trump's inauguration speech was for real. Obama's was a lie, but Trump's was for real, right? Trump's the only guy that can be the non-Wall Street president since Ronald Reagan. Trump's the only guy that can go against every institution and have his own way and basically tell the world what America's going to do. And the media just reports it that way. Donald Trump's doing this. Donald Trump's doing that. No talk about the fact that all the American people have to do is send their congressman to say, no, we don't want that. And the Congress votes, Donald Trump doesn't get to do that. But no, nobody even makes that suggestion, right? Okay, so the far-right cabinet of Trump just certainly guarantees that we're going to have tremendous division in our country, in America, of the left and right paradigm. And, of course, that'll bring violence. That's what they've been giving the people guns for, so they can shoot each other over it. And now in Europe, Trump's talking about safe zones, which again means military buildup, military conflict, being able to side with maniac, xenophobic countries like Hungary to keep the refugees out, right? Starve these people if you have to, right? Send them to camps, treat them like animals. Just don't let them into your countries. You have the right to do that, according to Donald Trump, the Christian. And so, so all the Trump supporters, I mean, how you could even pretend you're a Christian and support Trump is the part that blows my mind. That everything he's doing is just, he's setting you up for war and hate with everyone. And all these pro-Trumpers, these great Christians, they hate Obama, who was at least doing some things that on the surface looked like, the right liberal Christian thing to do. So really amazing how brainwashing works. So yeah, Europe, watch out Europe is what I say. 10 years ago, I was talking about moving to Europe. If they had any good surf that wasn't so cold. I was thinking, what a great life they have compared to America. America just absolutely sucks. It was already starting to show what a pathetic, I should say I was finally seeing after a life of being indoctrinated and brainwashed, what a pathetic life America offered compared to everyone else in the world as I was meeting other people from France, from Germany, from Italy, from Spain, from Portugal, from Greece, and all these countries that have still, small farms, small wineries, fresh food. They're against GMOs. They don't have Monsanto taken over. They still get in the street by 100,000 of them to keep the government a little bit, to keep the laws somewhat liberal so that, they get 3 weeks vacation a year. Yeah, if they have a baby, they get support. Yeah, they get all this support from the system, medical care and such, because they demand it and they still have a world in which they matter, enough to the elites that the elites have to give enough. Well, that's all what I say has been disrupted. That's what Brexit, that's what terrorism, that's what all of the 2008 crashing the economy. When I look at it now, I think, certainly one of the points of it was to destroy Europe, to crash Europe so that they could tear it apart. Because when I look now, every country I wanted to go live in everyone's unemployed. They're all scared of terrorists. They're all ready to elect, or they have now suddenly this populism move, xenophobic, keep the, Trump kind of people. The people that love Trump. They're all the people that love the fact that Trump's in. Yeah, send us guns. Help us build walls and fences to keep the refugees out so we can live like scared little rabbits owned by the military-industrial complex and the Wall Street like you Americans. So, watch out Europe and Japan, coincidentally. Unfortunately, Japan's always been on the short end of the stick, and I think they've been set up for doom. But Europe right now is really, they're being crushed. 10 years ago, Europe was the greatest place in the world to live. 10 years from now, we'll be lucky if it's not at war, certainly tearing at each other's throats, just like Americans. So that's what Donald Trump means for Europe to me in this fool's gold presidency. And then lastly, this fake war with the media. Donald Trump, I'm at war with the media. Sure you are, because every word that comes out of your mouth is truthful, just like Obama when he came in. And Obamacare was going to be so great for the people. It was going to be the mark of his presidency, which was the mark of the people getting the man that they wanted. The man that was the little man, the little black man that was for them, right? Obamacare. First thing Trump's done, repeal Obamacare. Even the Obama fans, nobody likes Obamacare. That was going to be the mark of his presidency. So boy, they sure botched that one, didn't they? No, it's just that was always meant to be a distraction. So nobody would pay any attention over that first couple of years that what Obama was really doing was worse than what Bush was doing. That we were actually tearing the Middle East apart and getting ready for war. That's what Obamacare. So what's in the media, the biggest headlines are there to distract you. The real news is on the back page if it's in there at all, because that's where the people who know best go to look for it. So anyway, the war with the media is propaganda, because his war isn't on propaganda. He's not pointing out to you how Arab terrorists from Saudi Arabia didn't fly planes into the buildings on 9/11 that were after the wrong enemy, that ISIS is no more ground roots terror organization than the Rockefeller Foundation. That these things are all funded for a reason, that the mainstream media is all a mouthpiece for the system. He's not undermining the propaganda. He's not at war with propaganda. He is the propaganda. And the propaganda of today is, I'm at war with the media. I'll bet he's not, you guys. And I'll bet the more time you waste pumping this guy up, the more ashamed you're going to feel when the truth comes out. So anyway, I've taken a long time today. There's some other issues, but I'm going to just leave it at that. This is fool's gold, you guys. This is, if you believe in the scripture, if you believe in reality, if you believe in any sort of geopolitical reality that makes sense, whether it's a Illuminati, whether it's the Masons, whether it's Lucifer, or whether it's just a bunch of, Carroll Quigley industrialist bankers, any way you slice it, you're getting Edward Bernays in your ears, and Donald Trump is like the epitome of that system. It looked like Ronald Reagan in his time. They sold us an actor, but at least he'd been in politics all of his life outside of acting, so maybe you could swallow it, right? Then they give us a CI, the head of they give us an actual sort of scumbag behind the scenes string puller, but it just became too obvious that nobody could like him for any reason. So to thumb it in our face, they give us Bill Clinton, the biggest scumbag of them all. And then to laugh at us, they give us the demon's little spawn, right? Bush Jr. And then, okay, right. You can't stand any more of this. We hear you. Oh my God, it's terrible. Oh my God, these guys are ruining the world. Oh, New World Order. So here you go. Man of the people, Obama. Man of the people, thank goodness the whole world can celebrate. And now Donald Trump, the reality show host, and the whole world's crying except for this small group that's brainwashed into thinking they're a big group of Donald Trump supporters who are bringing the power back to the people. Meanwhile, the people are in the streets, the ones that can or will, screaming and crying and lamenting the idea of what this really means. The few that have been awakened are now being shown what this really means, and they're screaming and crying in the streets, and that's why they're going to go to almost any lengths to stop it. And that's what you really got coming out of Donald Trump, is you're going to hate your neighbor here pretty soon if you don't start hating Donald Trump and hating this political system on both sides. Stop choosing sides and arguing for and against Trump, and start arguing for your neighbor, whoever they are, and against Trump and against every single person in this government. Or, you're already in trouble, but at least you'll be on the right side of trouble. You go down with the good guys instead of being part of the slaughtering massacre, instead of being the demons who do the slaughtering and the massacring and the dupes who follow those people. You'll be part of us that get slaughtered for telling the truth and being on the side of truth. So anyway, thanks for being here. See you soon. See you soon.